Okay, in 1940, Sam, my teacher, I called him Sam because he was an older brother, 4 years older, and he said Toscanini re-auditioned the bass section, and he fired some players, and Sam said one of the things he gave was Otello and the triplets from Lohengrin. So you have to learn them, and I practiced when I was during WPA things. I was practicing the triplets, and Sam thought I was pretty good, and then after I was taking a lesson with Sam late afternoon, and I played the triplets for him besides the lesson, and he looked out the window and says, "Oh, Phil Sklar coming and with a viola player for dinner," and I finished the triplets, and he said, "Could you play it again? I want you to be playing when Phil walks in." And I said, "Yeah," and I played, and I noticed someone was looking over my shoulder, and I played it, and he said, when I finished, he said, "Don't you ever breathe?" And Sam said, "You want to hear?" And he said, played the melody from Bartesini, and I played it, and Phil said, after we called him Phil, he said, if NBC would hear the kid, they take him. So I finished the lesson, and I walked to the door, and I was going out home, and Sam said, "Did you hear what Phil said? You have to get your union card. This is you have to get your union card, so when the opportunity comes, you'll have the union card, and I don't want you to live around Broadway. You're going to live with us." And I told my mother, and I went to live with him, and it was a wonderful experience. I used to sit the baby Larry, and he would sometimes say, "We're going to a movie, so Tony, you babysit and come upstairs and practice on the little bass, the Berganzi bass." And it was because I still have my $55 bass, so I was happy, and I did it. And then while I was living, he said there's going to be those days was called the audition weeks. 1 week Reiner would come to Steinway Hall, the next week Leinsdorf or something. You didn't have to go to the city. They came to Steinway Hall, and he said the audition. I want you to audition for Reiner, and but don't take the job. So I was living with him, and I got on my $55 bass in the subway, and went to Steinway Hall, and there were quite a few bass students, maybe, auditioning, and I went in, and he said, "Play here," and Beethoven Fifth and the start, and I played. So da 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 da, and when I got to the top C, he looked at. He said, "That's a horrible sounding bass." So I was deflated, and I played, and he gave me the G minor symphony. He said, "Play here," and the B flat da 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 da, and he motioned two slur and two up bow. And I said, "You want that bowing?" He said, "Try it." And I tried it, and he raised his eyebrow. But he said, thank you, and I went back to Levitan, and he said, "You didn't sign, did you?" I said, "Sign." He said, "That's a horrible sounding bass." And he said, "Oh," Sam said, "you'll get the contract offer." And he watched the mail for several days. He thought but it never came, and good, because it turned out. But when I played Rosalinda, and it ran to the early 1944, and I played the husband of the woman cellist was Max Goberman, conductor, and he was have the ballet Vincent Newman's Ballet Review, it was called, and she recommended me, and I went on the road for a month with the Ballet Review. We played Toronto and Baltimore, and 2 weeks in Boston, and the show closed. And in the meantime, I got the. I was offered to. Sam told me he was examination for the draft, and he said, "I don't have to get a sub, but go and sub and play with Toscanini, rehearse with Toscanini, because you know how we don't know how long we'll live, so you'll play." I went to the rehearsal, and Phil Sklar said, "Sit with me, assistant first," and it was a wonderful experience, because I told Barzin the music was going to be Oberon and Haydn 88, and I asked the National, could I borrow the part, so I practiced it, and I did, and the first experience with Toscanini was Mishikov tuned the orchestra, and you could hear a pin drop, and Toscanini walked in, and he said he has a guttural voice. Good morning, Oberon. And I have to backtrack. One time we were going to Manhattan on the subway, and Sam said, "Oh, look at that placard on they had placards on the top," and he said that this conductor was advertised for community orchestra. He conducted NBC once, and he said, "We don't take any baloney from the conductors," because they were doing the Eroica and the third movement, the horn solo. The conductor said that the first horn, so I want you to follow us. And the first horn said he doesn't take any baloney. He said, "Better you follow us." What do you mean? And the horn player said, Sam told me, he said, "If you don't follow us, I'll leave." And he got up and started walking off, and Leo Spitalny ran after him and said, "Please don't make a fuss. He'll never be back again, you know." And okay, this scenario ends. So the Toscanini's ready to conduct, and he said, "Oberon," and he raises his. And he goes, you know, it starts on D, and he's still doing 8. As soon as the horn player hits the 16th note, he screams, "One tempo, yours or mine?" And the horn player says, "Yours, maestro." It was the same horn player, and Toscanini says, "Ben, okay," and we started and played, and after we overture, we did Haydn 88, and I said, "Well, my goal has been reached. I finally played Toscanini once, and And after a short time, Sam said there's going to be an audition in Metropolitan. Go, but don't take the job. So he said, I'll tell you when you're ready. He always tell me. And I went to Emil Cooper was conductor at the audition, and I played Othello, and he said, he complimented the contractor that he liked what I did, but I played. I said, "You want to hear triplets from Lohengrin?" It was exasperating because I was doing La Breva, and he wanted to play da 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 da, and I really couldn't hold back. But I played it, and they said thank you, and I went home. But shortly after, Tuscany and the NBC did a benefit concert at Carnegie Hall. For the program was Brahms first, Beethoven fifth, and Tchaikovsky sixth. It was for the benefit of poor musicians at 802, and it was at Carnegie Hall, and I played it. No. The benefit was Madison Square Garden, and it combined the Philharmonic and the NBC. We had 19 bassists, and we did the last act of Rigoletto and Valkyrie and stuff. And when the bass players came up, Zimmerman said, "Congratulations, we hear you got the Metropolitan." And I said, "Nobody called me. I don't know." So the next, and I was excited because the cream of the bass thing was playing. So next day I called the contractor. I said I played was with the bass players, and they said they were congratulating me. He said, "Well, you really played good, but one bass player returned from the army, and they have to. So, we can't offer good because I didn't like to play in the pit because lights dark, But anyway, so I kept with Rosalinda, and when I came back from the army with Rosalinda, I was out 6 months, and they the rule was if you 6 or 9 months, I don't know what, you get a week off vacation. So they were going to move from 44th Street Theater to the Imperial Theater on 45th, and that week the other bass player took off the vacation, and I was alone. So we in Imperial Theater there was a smaller pit, and they said you have to be up in the box. I was higher than the percussion was on the opposite side and then the box too. So we started the overture, and I said, so I was nutty. I said, I bet I could play the overture from memory, and I did, and I thought, well, I'll try the opera, and I played the whole opera from memory. And when I finished, David Katz was the contractor. He was a viola player in the Philharmonic. He evidently used to come and check. It was contractor, and I felt a nudge back, and he said, "I saw what you did." Mm-hmm. And then when the next week, the other bass player came back, and they said, well, 2 basses, you can't fit in the box, so you're going to come into pit, but you can't be a same stand. You have to get one behind the other. And the bass player said, how are you going to share the stand? And I said, I won't mention his name. I didn't. So they put me in front with without the music, and he was back with the music, and the orchestra, saw this, and they said, "Wow!" And the harpist was impressed, and she spoke to Sebastian Caratelli, was principal flute in Pittsburgh, and he said, "There's an opening for principal for Reiner," and I told him about you, and he would like to hear you. And I told Sam, and he said, yes, go and audition, but don't take the job because you're going to NBC the next fall. Because after I played with the Red Cross concert, and I had the program, but they didn't know a list of personnel, too bad. But we did the Carnegie Hall concert, and he said, "You're going to," and NBC gave me a couple of radio shows, the Catholic Hour, playing background music. So I was working very little with NBC, and I was supposed to go to him, but Sam said, "Go and audition for Reiner, see if he likes you." And so I went to Steinway Hall, and this time I had the small Bergunzi bass. And so I walk in, and Charles Cunin was contractor, and he said to me, "Oh, you showed up, didn't you?" I said, "Why?" He said, "Everybody was afraid to come."
Because you showed up?
Yeah, he's surprised. So I played, and I had pretty much, I practiced a lot, and I was off stage. I said, should I play Koussevitzky or Bottesini or what? And I thought the bass players were prejudiced against the soloists. The story was there are 3 soloists in the bass world, and they're all fakers. They can't play beans in orchestra. So I thought if I play a solo and he likes me, the bass player's going to ask, "What did you play?" And if I said Bottesini or something, they say, flash, So I won't play a solo. I played Otello, and Reiner put the music out, but you could see I knew it, the recitative and the 6/4. He gave this, and he started to turn music, and it was annoyed because he couldn't find what he wanted. I said, what are you looking for? I was dumb. And he said, the G minor symphony, and I said, probably the passages you want. I know it. So I played da-di-di for first, and he said, no, I want the last movement, and I played B flat. He said, I want the C minor part, and I played it. And then I said, do you want to hear the triplets from Lohengrin? And he said, you also know. But I didn't memorize it because I was training to see the music, the notes, because I was a kid. I remember walking by the picket fence, Connecticut has white picket fence, and I was trying to walk to school and trying to focus, and it was difficult for me to keep track of focusing. So I did that, and I played the. He sat at the piano and played a start, and I played it, and he was at the piano, and I played the Schwab books. It was spread out for 4 pages, and I played, and he walked at the hall, and Hugo Kohlberg was here. He was in NBC, but he came to concertmaster in my 3rd year to Pittsburgh, and he was there, and when I got to the end, the 16th, Reiner said, "Come." He said, "I believe you could play them. C. Spector." And I went off, and a man came up. He said, Reiner said to see me. I said, I should see Spector. I'm Eddie Spector. And he said, how was $125? And I said, for principal? And he said, yes. And believe me, I said, well, I have to tell you, my teacher sent me to see how Reiner likes me, but I'm going to NBC. And you would think he would get angry. He said, what did you send? But he was a lawyer and said, if Leopold Spitalny, the contractor at NBC, knew you were offered, he would be impressed. But if you played a year with Reiner, he would be more impressed. I said, well, I'm going to my teacher now, and I'll tell him. And he said, no, call him. And I said, I don't have a dime to change. He said, here's a dime, call him. So I called Sam, and I said, he likes me, and he wants to hire me. And Sam said, well, maybe you should go for a year, because if you come in this section, you're going to be young and last and scared. So do a year with principal, and when you come, you have, background. And I said, okay. And I went to play a year. And after the end of the season, Reiner, a few earlier than the end, he called me when the contracts were going to come out, and the joke was that this European was, did you get the letter? And a lot of musicians would say Pittsburgh is awful, smoky, and I don't think I want to come back. And they preparing themselves. And Chauncey Kelly, the personal manager, says, Reiner wants to see you. And I walk in, and he said, Tony, what are we going to do about the bass section? He gave notices to 5 of the 8, but he took 2 back because it was hard to get bass players in the war thing. But and I said, if you're asking me for next year, you're asking me back. And he said, why do you say that? You're a good musician. And believe me, I said, well, I heard when you come to Pittsburgh with Reiner, you're putting your life in your hands. And he didn't get mad. He said, you look better than when you came. You have more hair. And I was doing hair restoration, but you could see it didn't help. It got rid of the oil and looked more. But I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to NBC. And they kept asking me every week, don't you change your mind, you will come back. And the last week of the season, which only was 20 weeks that year and went to 28, I called Sam. I said, he really wants me back. And Sam said, well, I was one of the 44 new members of the 44, and next year was going to be 46. But all they were not all fired because some left to go to bigger orchestras, but majority, because Reiner, the first day, Monday, he'd go through the piece and say, begin, and second bar, you play alone, and you have to be prepared, and some musicians would freeze up, and I was lucky because I made sure I was prepared, and I was more used to playing alone, and I knew he liked me, so it helps. So he would say, "Tony, play, show them," But what was I saying? But he hired two bass players back for the second year and let them go after the second year because Murray Grodna and Roger Scott came into the section and came better. So anyway, I said, okay, I'll go second. Sam said, you and I know he asked you back, but if you go to New York after one season, they're saying he said he was asked, but so you have to go back second. And the second year, I got Carnegie Tech. They called me, and I liked Pittsburgh. It was a friendly town, and I got to know musicians and their families. And I thought Pittsburgh is like a big New Haven because when I played with Fledermaus, I played 9 of the 15 months. I didn't know any of the musicians because I had to get out of the pit with the bass every night, and by the time I got there, they were gone to, so I knew just some of the musicians. So Pittsburgh, I was lucky because when I played, I played the Red Cross concert in Madison Square Garden. One young trombone player said, there's an opening for Chautauqua solo bass. And I said, what do you mean solo bass? He said, first bass. He said that Hans Gedek, it was librarian with the New York Philharmonic, you could see him. So I went to him and I said, I understand the opening. I'd like to apply. And he said, I'm waiting for another bass player that give me his word, would he accept? So call me in a couple of weeks. And a couple of weeks later was the audition for Reiner. And I figured I'm going to go home and really practice for the season. So I called him before I left Mr. Gedek and said, I'm going. You told me to call in 2 weeks for the principal's Chautauqua, and I'm going home because I got Principal Reiner. And he says, did you say Principal Reiner? I said, yes. Could you come and see me tomorrow? So I said, yeah, I'll postpone the trip for a day. And I went up. He was in Juilliard, too. I went and I walked in, and he said, did you say you were Principal? Yes. And he said, you could have the job. And when I signed the day before for Reiner was the first contract I ever signed, and the second day I signed for Chautauqua, and it was great because there was musicians was an elite orchestra. Chautauqua Mishikoff was concertmaster, and Guillet Quartet was assistant. Joe Silverstein was in the section. I envy nowadays because they have great Teton and thing. But I was lucky. The summertime, I got the job, and I had 6 more weeks of work. So after Pittsburgh, I went home, and I saw my philosophy teacher and Chautauqua, and I went back and prepared for the next season, Pittsburgh. But I played that, and I was happy with Pittsburgh, and it was nice because I was a bachelor 8 years, and I felt if I could send money home and live really well and save some money, I was good. I was happy with the weeks I did. 28 and 634. It was enough for a bachelor. Of modest means, and so I played and stayed. So where do you want me to go from here?
Can I just ask you a couple things about Chautauqua?
Yeah.
I studied there too. That was one of the first places I ever went to study. Did you teach when you were working in Chautauqua, or did you just play there?
Just play because it's funny because they had a student orchestra, and Ed Murphy was first horn from St. Louis and Chautauqua, and he was conductor of the student orchestra. And he said he had only 2 basses, and he said we have probably 18 flutes and clarinets for the band thing, and so he asked me to what would I play, and to the concert on Saturday morning, and one of the art principal said, "How come you're the only one the professional hired?" And I said, "I'm the only one who looks young enough to play." So I played. I didn't teach. There were no students. I think I gave casual pointers to one of the gentlemen that played. He was an amateur. So, but I liked Chautauqua because the lectures were great, and the Protestant ministers would give real good sermons. And I remember I used to go to the amphitheater to hear lectures, and also I played the opera season, and I liked it because Hans Gedek said 6 weeks, but you're a principal and you could play 3 weeks, and I liked it because I went alone in the pit, and it was a good experience, and I enjoyed it. So I remember one lecture, I thought he was a loony. It was Von Braun said he talked about we're going to the moon. And I said, this guy's up in the moon already. But it turned out I heard really inspiring lectures. So, and I enjoyed it for, then after 8 years, we got married, Angela, and the children started to come annually. And when we had 2, we had a drive from Pittsburgh with Angela insisted that the cot and mattress and everything, it was summer and winter fall clothing, but it was so loaded, and it was nice for and Angela about the 3rd year said, I'm tired of going, and then I got an offer to play 1 year to Civic Light Opera, and next year Mrs. Dolorowski started Chatham Day Camp, and he said, "Would you want to teach?" And I said, "Well, I knew Angela was happy," and I said, "Yeah," but he said he'll give me the salary of Chautauqua, and I was there from probably the middle of the 50s to 70 when the symphony went to 52 weeks, and I couldn't make it. So it was nice, and but I was sort of limited. I used to play a lot of the solos for the kids, the assembly, before they start, and it was good experience. And I studied. I taught solfege to the kids, and I'll tell you a funny story. The first year I was really nervous about what I teach, and the teacher there said, Russell Lickman said, we have records of teaching kids, and I put on the first record in the class, and the teacher on the record says, "Young children, this is middle C," and he plays, and a young boy at the back class said, "Ha ha ha! That's not C, that's C sharp." It was Danny Phillips. He plays in the Orion thing, and great. He's the son of Eugene Phillips played in the orchestra, and he teaches. And he had two exceptional violinists that he taught, and they're really terrific. They were last year. They 3 days they played the complete Beethoven quartets in 3 days, and everybody was flabbergasted. So that's the story about Dan. So it shows that confidence. It was natural. Everybody would. Marsden told the story about very, very famous conductor, and Beethoven 50, and it was his birthday, and the orchestra said they'll play a joke. Instead of playing it in C minor, they're going to play C sharp minor. And they start, and the conductor stops, and he knew something was wrong, and he started again, and he stopped again, and when one of the wind players messed up the transposition, and he said, "Oh, gentlemen, let's play it in C minor." So you say he was hesitant yet, but Danny Phillips said C sharp. So anyway, so Reiner, the stories, the first year. We went on tour, and a short tour to Canada, and we did. We were going to play the Shostakovich Sixth Symphony, which we were going to record after we get back from the tour, and we ended up in Boston, and the first 2 years, I was in the back of the orchestra, and I was center next to the timpani, but it didn't bother me. As later, the sound, so I could focus on different things better. And so after the concert, the fiddle player said, "Did you see what Jerry did?" And Jerry came in to the concert, and he said, "Look what I picked up in a pawn shop, a telescope." And after the concert, I didn't see it because they were a straight line. He said, "Did you see Jerry pull out the telescope during the concert and look for it?" Because the beat was so small. And we got back, and I took their word for it, and the almost the last week of the season, Eddie Spector called me in. He said, "Tony, we're going to go with only 7 bassists for the recording because Reiner thinks that Jerry will mess up the recording session. So we're going to pay him and send him home." So he went, and I hear so many stories about, they change. It happened in Chicago, and but it happened in Pittsburgh, and Jerry was a good bass player, but they say he was they say a little Michiganer, but he was erratic, and he liked me because he said you should go to an excellent friend, a musician who was brother of the conservatory in Italy. He played. Sam Levitan played it for his symphonette. He says an excellent musician. His name was Rosalino di Giussi Maria. He was gung ho for the Schillinger system. You know the Schillinger system. Schillinger was a mathematician, probably a physicist at Columbia University, and he devised a complete system of harmony, mathematical. And George Gershwin studied with him too. And the first lesson, I was apprehensive, but he said you could figure out how many scales in the range of an octave from 1 unit scale to 12 units would be chromatic, and figure out how many scales there were. And I went home and I figured it out by trial and error, and I was intrigued because it was symmetric. A 12-unit scale was 12, and 1 unit scale was 1, and 2 was 55, and 3 20, and it pyramided. So to 6 and even, and I was intrigued, and he said, "You're going to this." He said the silly method in Europe was don't do this and do you can't have parallel fifths and hidden octaves, but it's easy because you do 1 3 5 and perpendiate. You don't get parallel octaves. So 1 could go to 3 or 5 because it can't go to 1, and 3 could go to the others. And I worked in, and then he started. You have to take a unit scale, and it probably is interesting for you. I have 4 books manuscript that I wrote, but I wasn't happy with it. It didn't sit right for me, mathematics and music. But I did it because he thought. He said, "You're." I said, I'm really not interested in this system because I have a chart with graphs to make innumerable rhythms and then innumerable arrangements of tones, and you put them together. That's not music. Right. And I said that I'm not interested in. He said, you have unlimited possibilities. I said, I'm not interested. I just want to know understand what Beethoven did. And he said, you're so good at mathematics. Why don't you feel that you want to be better than a bass player? And I said, is there anything better? And he looked down and sneered. But I studied with him a while, and after I got more from Lapotnikov and Roland Like, and actually John Hunt came. He was Dr. Hunt. He was a music teacher, and he really was a very good teacher. He filled me in a lot of things, and I enjoyed him but he left to go to computers, to the thumb. He was a big success, I think. So the second year, I thought that I really liked Reiner, and I thought I'd rather play with Principal Reiner. More importantly, he liked me. So I figured I liked Pittsburgh and instead of New York, and I thought I was more say a bigger fish in a small pond than a little fish in New York. So I stayed, and I'm not sorry. So, but after you talk about the relationship with the symphony, with the community, it was different. And I told Gideon Teplitz a few years ago, it was a different atmosphere because we played at the mosque, and we were in close proximity to the audience, and a lot of the audience were Duquesne or Carnegie Tech, and we sort of got to know each other. And when I would walk around Oakland, I'd greet people that I knew from the audience. It's not that way anymore because Heinz Hall is sort of separate. Larry Hurst and Chris Brown and Clay Thompson, he was also my section, and I thought I explained what I thought about the recitative, and they said that they never heard of it, and this summer I talked about it to the students. I coached the ninth because the final concert did it, and I spoke, and Frank Proto was there, and Rabath, and Frank Proto said, we never heard of that interpretation, but it makes sense, so it encourages me that I could talk about it, because when I played, I got the impression of an impression about what Beethoven had in mind, and Frank Proto says it makes sense, but he never heard of it, and so that's the thing.
Now I'm dying to know. Now I'm trying to know what your interpretation is.
Well, you probably know, because it was obvious to me that Beethoven wrote three beautiful movements, and the recitative would seem to be about the what's going to be the melody of "Ode to Joy," and it starts with the a clatter, and he says, the baritone says, "Oh, friends, go away with his tones. He's not happy. He's looking for Ode to Joy theme," and the second thing worse with the diminished, and then he said, I get the impression that he was unhappy with the theme, the clatter, and then the first movement comes in, da-da, da-da, and the reaction of that is not suitable, but it is beautiful. It is, and then the scherzo comes in, and the same thing, and the third movement is the adagio is really beautiful, but I get the sense that Beethoven started with disappointment, or that the theme was not suitable. But after the third movement, it starts it's sad, and angry. So I thought the recitative was, I don't want to say angry, but annoyed, and I said, like a parent, father spanks the kid and after he's sorry, and the after these beautiful slow movements, it starts soft and sort of melancholy, and it gets aggravated, and then the theme is introduced in a different key. It sounds like Steinberg would say when this is it, and then he brings the beautiful theme. So he accepts the idea. Mm-hmm. So and it makes sense to teach the students how to interpret it. So that's my idea. And in Interlaken, I asked, did anybody ever hear it or think? And a little girl back says, yeah, I read about it someplace. And I said, oh, it's nice to reassure me. So, and that's it. I don't want to mention personalities. Okay.
Okay. That's helpful to have that.
But somebody, maybe 20 years ago, presented a master class and got the idea, but he was there in Interlaken. Uh-huh. And I said, okay. So, and if I have the book, I should start how I started with Mouvement Bordeaux, because I was the youngest of 8 children. So I was the baby and maybe the favorite, but it was a big span for between my oldest sister and me. So one of the sisters married a barber. He was almost like Figaro. He played the mandolin, and he was great. He was a Neapolitan style, Uh-huh. So but he played by ear. He played mandolin, and one morning, Nellie, my sister, one sister, I have 5 sisters. I had 5 sisters. She said, "Tony, go in the dining room. Johnny left something, and he left me a banjarine. It's a small banjo, and it's tuned like a mandolin, double strings like that." And my brother, oldest brother, was 5 years older, and he played good guitar. And he said, "I'm going to teach you." And he said, he taught me the first song, "Among My Souvenirs." And he says, I knew the scale. It says mi mi so so fa 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 la so so so, and I picked it up, and he said, "This me here," and he put it on the B or D, and it was me. So I played it and I learned it, and he said, and I'll show you another song, "My Blue Heaven." But mi sol la sol bi so. So I learned the 2 tunes, and the family thought it was a reincarnation of Mozart. But I was in probably 3rd or 4th grade, and the teacher said, "We're going to have a Christmas party, and does anyone play an instrument?" And I put up my hand. I said, "Yes." I said, "Okay, bring the instrument for the party." And my mother starched white shirt and sent me to the banjarine to the class, and teacher says, Anthony, come forward, and I went to a little chair and I took the banjarine, and she said she walked to the piano, and I said, how do you tune it? And I said, I don't know. All I know is me so soft. She said, if you can't tune it, how could you play it? Go and sit down. So I went, and I went home. How did it go? She said, go and sit down. And they were pretty mad at the teacher because I could have played the tunes, but that was my first failure.
Oh, that's difficult.
So the second was, I was in 7th grade, and I had played a little bit of violin, so I knew treble clef, okay? And everything was in do, but I spoke about it in the focus. My friends played an instrument that played in the band, and I thought, gee, if I play, the teacher, a sister of the music teacher, who was not a regular teacher, came in and said, did you ever notice the tuba in the principal's office? Who would like to play it? And I put up my hand. If I could play in the band with my friends. And he said, okay. She took me into the room and started, he says, this is the scale, and do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, and do, re, di, re, re, you know, the chromatic syllables, and this fingering, and but the instrument is in E flat, but E flat is on the first ledger line below, like bass, violin clef, and she said, this is do, but you have to neutralize 3 flats, but every time you play, you have to add 3 sharps to neutralize the 3 flats. So, okay, and this is in E flat, and I got the impression do was E flat, and E flat on the E flat instrument was do also. So probably it was G flat. But I went home and I figured out the system with no teacher, but I had A system and B system, a third apart, and I played the next year, and I would think I'm using A system or B system, and I alternated, and the teacher never pointed out.
They never told you which one was right?
No, she didn't probably realize I was a third off, and maybe sometimes they were harmonious with the third, and probably not. And I played in, and the friends said the Register, a newspaper, a local newspaper, going to start a band, and the band leader said, "Oh, he plays the tuba, bring him." And I was really reluctant to go, but I went, and the first piece that he started, he was a musician. I was. Should I start A system or B system? And unfortunately, I picked the wrong one because he said bass wrong down. But stop playing. and I sat there, and in intermission he came over, and I said, "Wait, I have another system." "What do you mean?" And I played. He says, "Oh, you're playing the right notes now." So that was my first exposure to the thing. But I went through high school with the tuba sousaphone, and I played it. The band leader thought I was pretty good. He featured me twice, solo with assemblies, but I had a system. And then after high school, I got a week later, I got the first bass because my brother said he was playing jazz, 5 years older, so I was 17, and he said, why don't we buy him a bass and he could start playing? It was Depression, and you could make some money playing in trios, and tuba you can't use. So I got I took about 6 months lessons with an old gentleman, an Austrian, and he was good. And I shouldn't say this, but I did the 12 positions, in Samandal Chromatic, and it was September, and he said, "You're doing so good. I'm going to put you in the Civic Orchestra, you New Haven, and you won't get paid, but you'll play." And I went, and the first piece was Magic Flute Overture. And I knew the positions, and so I practiced to try to move the fingers, and it was a semi-professional orchestra, I guess. And after it was a concert a month, and by the time the concert came, I was playing in front of the mirror to try to get and I knew it from memory. So, and the piece, and I played, and it seems okay, but the disaster was there were 7 basses the first rehearsal. The first rehearsal for the second concert, no bass player showed up, and I was alone. Oh boy. The conductor was the concertmaster in the New Haven Symphony, Hugo Kortchak, and he did the scherzo of the New World. Down, down, da, da, but it came da 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 da. The three and eighth notes come different. Mm-hmm. I was thinking, what key is this? And I was petrified, and it was a disaster because I couldn't read so fast, and so that was but I figured it out in time for the concert, but it was humiliating to stand there, but and I didn't realize the problem yet, but then I was playing jazz, and they thought I was pretty good at jazz because my brother, if he loved me, but he was not patient because he said, "I'm going to teach you jazz, and if you play do mi so, that's a C chord, and you so ti re fa dominant, and fa la do was subdominant. You have 3 chords. But occasionally you could put the secondary dominant. That was be re fi la do. Okay, so and he told me this, and let's fake, and I was petrified. He started the tune, and he said, "You dummy, can't you hear?" So I went into a shell, and then I started learning things, and when I would go on a job, I'd walk in, and they said I looked exactly like Joe, or younger, and I'd walk in and say, the musicians say, "Oh, you Joe Bianco's brother. Do you have a good ear?" Like, and I cringed. I said, "I'm a dummy." So, but I learned to play, and from 1935 and about 1937, I was invited with two other white musicians to play for Don Rayfield, a black band, because it was an honor. So they have 5 blacks, and Marty Blue played trumpet, and Eddie Costanza, who went with the Gaelen Orchestra after, and me. So we were only, except for the cop at the door, 3 whites in the whole, and we played from 10 o'clock to 4 in the morning on Thursdays, and it was great. It was great, and we no music. We made arrangements as we, and they thought I was pretty good. And after they say, after 4 o'clock, want to go for coffee? So Fridays was the rehearsal for the New Haven Symphony. I have to be at the rehearsal 10 o'clock.